Tonight, a brazen daylight shooting leaves a mother and her son dead. The Camp Road community marred by this latest killing as investigators are on the hunt for suspects. And less talk, more action. A local pastor making an appeal for the church to step up in the fight against crime. Also, an Our News exclusive as executive level terminations at Bahamas Power and Light. And then coming up in Our News at 7:30, how the Bahamas is helping the Turks and Caicos Islands fight a growing crime problem. Our News at 7 starts now. Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kendino Knowles. A mother and her son are dead following a brazen daylight shooting in the Camp Road community. This as police launch a manhunt for the suspects, and the country's murder count continues to climb rapidly. Our Jamila Missick gets us started tonight.
A family member visibly shaken up as others looked on while police conducted initial investigations into a double homicide on Friday. It was shortly before 10 a.m. when police were called to the scene on Sutton Street off Camp Road. Police press liaison Chief Superintendent Chrislyn Skippings telling the media that the victims are related.
Two family members, a male and female, were engaged in a conversation when a male with whom they had an altercation with moments prior returned and opened fire.
The man was pronounced dead on the scene and the woman transported to hospital by private vehicle where she died of her injuries. Family member MacDonald Cartwright, who confirmed the victims to be his aunt Bernadette Tynes, affectionately known as Laba, and her son Bertram McPhee, also known as Bookie. He says when he got the alarming news, he could not believe it.
She wasn't just an aunt to me, she was a mother to me because, I lost my mother and my father, so she was there, She was like the catalyst. She was younger, but she was like so much years older and mature, She was the catalyst and the glue that kept the family together.
Now, police say the alleged suspect responsible for the double homicide is known to them, and they say he was reportedly wearing an ankle monitoring device, which he cut off.
He was being monitored via the electric monitoring device, and moments ago we've received information that he has subsequently cut the monitoring device off. And so we need to get this suspect in custody ASAP.
Police identifying the suspect as 38-year-old Kevon Brown of number 50 Bladdock Avenue, who was on bail for murder. Police say his last known whereabouts was in eastern New Providence. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Missick.
Now, today's double homicide has raised a lot of questions. Once again, the public and media asking, how are suspects and people who are accused of serious crimes allowed on bail? Chief Superintendent Chrislyn Skippings responding this way.
They're being monitored, so being monitored means that you're able to traverse the streets of New Providence. There is a system in place where we can actually see where persons are at particular times. And that's all I'm going to say with regards to that. It's a breach because they should ensure that their batteries are charged at all times. And so that is why in recent weeks you've seen us come on, you've seen us said that we have placed before the courts persons who have breached their bail conditions. That is one of the breaches when they fail to charge it.
Now, police say they are still questioning people in reference to the murder of Marcus Hinsby. Nearly 2 weeks later, there are still no arrests. Hinsby, a Cable Bahamas employee, was found back on September 26th in his Veneto apartment on West Bay Street with multiple lacerations. Co-workers found him after they were concerned that they had not seen him. A candlelight vigil was held for Hinsby this past Sunday.
I, Kendall Strawn, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty, King Charles III, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
That was Assistant Commissioner of Police Kendall Strawn being sworn into the Royal Turks and Caicos Police Force by Commissioner Trevor Botting. Strawn, who will work in the Office of Special Constable, is among officers sent to that island to help with a growing crime problem, which we have more on in Our News at 7:30. And as the murder count continues to soar, a local pastor says the church can do more to address the issue. He's calling for less talk and more action. Berthany McDermott reports.
We're in trouble. The nation is in trouble, and we need, again, all hands on deck.
Amid the ongoing fight against crime, Living Waters Kingdom Ministries senior pastor Apostle Raymond Wells says more can be done by the church to address the issue. Wells's comments come after the Prime Minister admitted the current murder count is concerning. He says churches need to leave the pews and the pulpits and get into the community.
We need to talk concerning the issues and concerns in our country, but at the same time come out of our pulpits, come out of our four walls, and begin to make our contribution in the community. We need action. I don't do too much talking. I want action, and that's what brings change. Action brings change. Faith without works is dead. Ain't like we're not informed. We know what needs to be done.
Earlier this year, the Davis administration held a crime conclave to map out a way forward for tackling crime. Recently, the murder count hit triple digits after a spate on murders over the last 2 weeks. But Wells, who also finds the statistics worrisome, says just talking about the issue simply isn't enough.
It's always more we can do. There's always more we can do, but we have to start not only talking, but we have to start to put our words to action. That's what's going to bring change. Talking gives information. Action brings change.
Wells is urging churches to get involved in their communities. At his own church, he says they're involved with the school suspension program in partnership with the Ministry of Education. Wells says all hands must be on deck.
The FNM and the PLP got to work together. This is a real issue we have in our country. We could pray, and that's our job as a church to pray. But at the end of the day, we have to get up and do something.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
A convict accused of beating his cellmate to death will stand trial for the murder. 33-year-old Diallo Williamson is charged with the murder of Mikhail Miller, a 29-year-old psychiatric patient who was found dead in a cell in the maximum security section at the Bahamas Department of Corrections last November. Prosecutors have served Williamson with a voluntary bill of indictment that fast-tracked his case to the Supreme Court for trial. He is to be arraigned in early December. Williamson is already serving 2 sentences, one for shop breaking and stealing, another for stealing a phone and tablet from his mother. Now to a story you will see on just one station. Terminations at Bahamas Power and Light. Our News understands Energy Supply Director Andrew Danville, Security Director Lester Fernander, and IT Director Sebastian Carey are no longer with the company. The power company's chairman is defending the move.
These are internal matters when we determine exactly what's best for BPL. We make it, and these are decisions that we are making every single day.
Roll also insisting the decisions were made in the best interests of the company. He says the terminations were to make the company more financially stable without putting more of a strain on BPL customers.
In terms of certain positions have been made redundant, right? The director of security, that's a redundant position. So as we attempt to make BPL more nimble, more efficient, so that your bill doesn't go up, we make these decisions from time to time. So in the cases that you were talking about, in these 3 cases, they were all in an attempt to make us more efficient, right? To ensure that we can service the public in a better way.
That was BPL Chairman Pedro Roll, and that's not all Roll had to say about the terminations. He also responded to speculation that more terminations are on the way. You can find out what he told our Berthany McDermott in a full report in Our News at 7:30. Well, the level of pollution, whether on land and sea or in the air, continues to be a priority for officials at the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection. Aaron Pyfram, a senior environmental officer, believes the solution may actually lie in taking full advantage of our natural resources.
For a country that has over 275 Sundays a year, why are we not on solar fully?
Our Christina Dragovich explores the issue tonight, beginning at 7:30. Well, it's time now for your first look at temperatures across the country, and meteorologist Greg Thompson, he's standing by in the Weather Center. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Kendian, and a happy Friday evening, everybody. Nice and comfortable on the outside. Temperatures in the mid-80s, 84 degrees under partly cloudy skies. It's a bit on the breezy side out there. Your winds out of the northeast at 13 miles per hour. and your field slight temperature in the mid-80s. Around the family violence tonight, temperatures currently 81 degrees in Freeport as well as in Marsh Harbor. We pick up 83s in Allenstown, Bimini. Over in Great Harbor Key, Governor's Harbor, you guys, 83 as well, and in Nicholstown, Andros. Here in the capital, we are at 84. Central Bahamas, temperatures, well, they're comfortable there as well, 84 in Kemps Bay. We pick up 82 in Georgetown, 87 in Cat Island, that's Arthurstown. And in Coburn Town, San Salvador, 86 as well as in Deadman's Key. And into the southeast Bahamas, temperatures in the mid-80s there. 87 in Duncantown, Ragged Island, Colonel Hill, Crooked Island, 83. We pick up 84s in Delectable Bay, that's Acklands. And across in Abrams Bay, 84. 85 in Turks and Caicos Islands, Providenciales, and deep south, Matthewtown, Inagua, you guys are currently at 85. Satellite view, weak frontal boundary basically washing out across the central Bahamas, generating a couple of isolated showers. We saw a couple of them here in the capital earlier today. But there's also another frontal boundary that's basically staying to the east of the islands. We will continue to see one or two smaller showers later on tonight through tomorrow, but conditions will be rather nice. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us. A look at the tropics and your extended forecast is still to come.
A Moody's downgrade on the country's credit worthiness, but it's not all bad news. Coming up, find out the improved economic outlook. Also, the 200-bedroom hotel with mega yacht facilities, casino, and golf courses that will pump $250 million into the Long Island community. Details on the project tonight after its agreement was signed yesterday. And later, we continue to raise awareness for breast cancer this month. Our Megan Shepard shares how one group is joining forces in the global fight. It's all coming up when Our News returns. Moody's Investor Service has downgraded the government's long-term issuer and senior unsecured ratings to B1 from Ba3. That new rating puts a dent in the country's credit worthiness. But it was not all bad news, as Moody's also improved our economic outlook from negative to stable. In fact, the country's economic growth is pegged at 7% this year. This is the first stable outlook since February 2019, when the Bahamas' credit rating was Baa3. Moody's says the downgrade to B1 was driven by a higher degree of government liquidity risk. The Free National Movement was quick to react to the new rating. F&M Shadow Minister Kwesi Thompson releasing a statement last night saying the opposition is disappointed. Thompson insists it's clear the government's excessive discretionary spending has contributed to the downgrade. Now, we do have more on the story in our news at 7:30, where a former Chamber of Commerce chief breaks down what the downgrade means for the pockets of the average Bahamian. It's a story you don't want to miss. A heads of agreement signed for a multi-million-dollar project in South End, Long Island. Tonight, our Marlena Leonard tells us what it all means.
Azul Destinations Limited and Calypso Cove Destination Limited were approved to develop an independent cruise port terminal destination, marina, and a luxury residential resort community development to be known as Calypso Cove.
The development will include a 200-bedroom hotel, mega yacht facilities, a casino, cruise pier, and golf courses, as well as park areas designed in conjunction with the Bahamas National Trust. The Deputy Prime Minister also confirming plans for the expansion of the Long Island Airport.
Of course, this is going to be a key requirement for the type of development that we see here. There's already a preliminary design. We expect there to be a PPP on the development of the airport. Either this year or early next year, we will have the request for proposals in relation to the airport.
Many around the table stress the Bahamian-centric approach to the development, both in design and investment. This Bahamian influence can already be seen through Azul Destinations General Counsel. Thomas Dean is credited for having suggested Long Island as the location for the development.
This is going to be the first time in about 10 years, from 1985, that we're going to see what I call sustainable economic opportunities in Long Island. We have not seen it. And in particular, I am from South Long Island. I'm from Roses. And as a child, to watch a settlement go from 450 people to 4, of which they are all related to me, this would tell you why this is so needed.
They hope the groundbreaking can start in late 2023 or early 2024. Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
Executives from the Royal Caribbean Group got an in-depth tour of the Pompey Museum of Slavery and Emancipation recently. They say the tour is part of an initiative to build relationships with local businesses and find more authentically Bahamian experiences for their guests.
My role specifically is about empowering the community, empowering, the local businesses. So specifically working, with those businesses and seeing how Royal Caribbean can support, their efforts and their growth, and also how we can connect those businesses, with Royal Caribbean, the guest experience. So here today, we really want to offer authenticity, these type of experiences to our guests, and what better not than, someplace that's all about the history and culture of the Bahamas.
That was RCL's Director of Business, Crystal Campbell. Meantime, RCL's VP of Government Relations in the Americas, Russell Benford, says guests are often turning to traditional experiences.
One of the things that we talked about today was that cruise guests now and a lot of tourists, they want to experience things. They want to experience the history, the culture, the music, the food of a destination or a place that they visit. So it's really important for us as Royal Caribbean Group to be able to inform our guests about wonderful destinations like this, where they can visit this museum and learn about the history of slavery in the Bahamas. And I just think, walking through today, seeing the exhibits, hearing the expertise of the people who guided the tour, this has been a wonderful experience.
And if you're interested in digital currency, then this story may interest you. Central Bank Governor John Roll giving an update on the sand dollar. His comments coming during the Bahamas think tank luncheon at Sapodilla Estate this week. Roll saying they've been straddled between development and beginning the push for people to get more comfortable with using central bank's digital currency.
That work is approximately completed, and we anticipate that over the next few months, the financial institutions will build that development into their proprietary platforms, and we can begin with more push to focus on adoption. And the big part of adoption for us is getting merchants enrolled so people can have outlets to use sand dollars. So we're on the runway.
When our news comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as an emotional scene at a temple in northeastern Thailand on Friday as parents began the gruesome task of identifying their slain children. Plus, the reconnaissance mission that leads to the first ever photo of the moon. And we continue to spread breast cancer awareness with the story of how one group is joining forces in the global fight against the deadly disease. Our news is back in a moment. This is Our News. Welcome back. We turn our spotlight now to stories from around the world as an emotional scene at a temple in northeastern Thailand on Friday as parents began the gruesome task of identifying their slain children. These are the victims of the worst massacre of children in history by a single killer. 23 children between 2 and 5 years old were slashed to death while adults were shot. A 34-year-old former police sergeant facing a drug charge killed 37 people in addition to his wife and son before killing himself as police launched a manhunt. On Friday, the victims' parents collapsed into tears on the ground as they were reunited with the bodies of their children.
Three-year-old Techin was one of the children killed. His aunt, Suiman Sudfan Pitak, recounted the horror.
I knew that he'd be one of the deceased. We saw 2 dead bodies outside, including that of a young child. I knew right then that my nephew wouldn't have survived. I was told that all the children died. His class teacher came to apologise to me, saying there was nothing she could do to save the kids. She'd done her best at that time. The children were all stuck inside the room.
Authorities said a former police officer carried out the massacre and later returned home and shot his wife and child before turning his weapon on himself. Police said he was sacked last year over drug allegations and was facing trial on a drugs charge. They added he had been in court that day, then went to the daycare centre to collect his child. But when he did not find him there, the rampage began. A district official told Reuters that about 30 children were at the centre, fewer than usual because of heavy rain.
Meantime, the risk of a nuclear Armageddon is at its highest level in 60 years. U.S. President Joe Biden making that claim while referring to rising tensions with Russia. President Vladimir Putin is threatening the use of tactical nuclear weapons after some critical losses in the war with Ukraine. But President Biden warns that Putin is not joking. The U.S. is trying to gauge how Putin will figure his way out of this ongoing war. And according to Biden, the last time America faced this level of threat was the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said last week, despite the threats, there were no real signs Russia was preparing to use nuclear weapons. And that same war in Ukraine has European leaders scratching their heads, trying to figure out how to soften the blow of rising energy costs. Several ideas are on the table at an EU summit in Prague. One measure is a cap on gas prices. But there are concerns a cap would affect the security of Europe's gas supply. Already, there is agreement on levies on unexpected large profits in the form of a windfall tax on fossil fuel companies, as well as a mandatory 5% cut on peak electricity consumption. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
One thing is very clear. There's a broad support that next spring, at the end of the winter, when our storages will be depleted, it is of paramount importance that we have a joint procurement of gas so that we avoid to outbid each other, but that we have a collective bargaining power and that we put that in place.
And in regional news, thousands of dollars in outstanding electricity and water bills in Antigua and Barbuda could be written off by the government. Cabinet reporting this week a decision to write off the arrears up to December 31st. Prime Minister Lester Byrd's government wants an amnesty period to clear the old debts up to 2022. It's part of a rebuilding post-COVID initiative. In answering questions about the impact of revenue, Cabinet spokesman Melford Nicholas said it will have a positive effect on incremental revenue as much of the old debts are uncollectible, adding that it will only benefit those who pay the amounts owed before 2022. Now, the government is hoping for an increase in this year's revenue as last year's debts are cleared. And 5 men are awaiting formal charges in St. Kitts in a huge drunk bust on the high seas. They could face serious drug smuggling charges in St. Kitts and Nevis for their roles in a cocaine and cannabis drug bust with an estimated street value of over $26 million. 3 Trinidadian men, 1 Grenadian, and another from Caracas were arrested by authorities in waters off St. Kitts and Nevis. The drugs included 32 bales of suspected cocaine and cannabis in 16 vacuum-sealed bags. They were found in the walls of a cabin of their vessels. They remain in custody awaiting the outcome of the investigation on the seizure and arrest. Still to come on our news, today in history, the first ever photos of the moon captured. Find out more interesting facts about the day that was October 7th. Plus, your look at what to watch right here on RTV from now until the 9th of this month. Also, spreading the message of early detection in the fight against breast cancer, how one group is joining forces. And an Our News exclusive at 7:30, as executive-level terminations have led to speculations about more firings on the way. The company's chairman now on the defense. That's coming up when Our News returns. Welcome back to Our News. On this day in history, some interesting facts to note. In fact, in 1959, the far side of the moon was photographed for the first time by the Soviet Union's Luna 3 spacecraft. The far side of the moon is shown in this image from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter from March 2010. The image showing the moon's topography from LRO's Lola instruments with the highest elevations up above 20,000 feet in red. Then in 2003, Austrian-born Hollywood actor Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor of California in a recall election that saw voters throw out Democratic Governor Gray Davis. California Republican Governor-elect Arnold Schwarzenegger and his wife Maria Shriver waved to their supporters before his acceptance speech in Los Angeles. And in 2006, Russian journalist Anna Politkovskaya, an outspoken critic of President Vladimir Putin, was shot dead at her apartment block in central Moscow. She was 48. In this photo, a man walks past flowers laid down in front of her house where she was found dead in central Moscow. And here's a look at what to watch. In the RTV's classic block this week, that's mornings between 10 a.m. and noon, you can watch national trailblazer Sidney Poitier in classic movies including To Serve With Love, In the Heat of the Night, The Defiant Ones, A Raisin in the Sun, and Lilies of the Field. Be sure and check your programming guide for more right here on RTV. As we continue to raise awareness for breast cancer this month, our Megan Shepard sharing how one group says joining forces is the best way to fight cancer.
According to World Cancer Research Fund International, breast cancer is the most common cancer in the world. President of Sister Breast Cancer Support Group President Andrea Sweeting.
I think it's rising more, but unfortunately we can't do as much as we would like to because of the problems we're having with having the instrument to be in the Bahamas when we need them and having to get that surgery for the women to get started. I just feel that we need more avenues to help to educate our persons, in all honesty, because we realize that some persons, they're afraid to come forth and they don't want others to know. But you have to realize you can't get help if you don't speak up.
Sweeting says the group provides free medical support to those battling breast cancer, and this is where you can assist financially.
Now we're trying to make sure that persons who may need that port can have it. As you know, that we gift the port. If the person can give a donation, we would accept it, but if they can't, and then we provide the gripper needles, which is used for the infusion when they go to have this treatment. And so we would give them the gripper needles as well, so they could come back and get that.
During the month of October, the group aims to raise as much awareness as possible.
Because we ask women to try to do your mammograms. Yes, it might be a little bit expensive, but we say thanks to these fraternity groups and sorority groups who assist us with coupons to help persons get that. And we want you to realize that you must do your own self-breast examination. You have to do it. You're going to be the first one to know that something's happening even before you take that mammogram. And if that is the case, then go see a doctor.
She says although she understands some women may feel depressed after a diagnosis, the Sister group is here to help others through their journey.
It makes you feel so much better to know that you helped, if only one person. That is the most important part. And that is why we're here, to strengthen as many persons as we possibly can to keep them going and moving forward.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepard.
All right, now that does it for us in Our News at 7. To watch that story again and for all of today's top stories, visit ournews.bs.